Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are cracking open a really specific, a very intense chapter in the whole saga of Walter White and Jesse Pinkman.
Oh, yeah, a really dark one.
Yeah, it is. We're looking through a huge stack of notes, articles, and all this great production trivia regarding the second episode of the fourth season of Breaking Bad.
An episode titled 38 Snub.
Exactly.
Okay.
But before we really get into the nuts and bolts of it all, I want to pose a question to you, the listener. How do you handle it when you realize you have absolutely no control over your own life?
That's the fundamental question of this entire hour of television.
Right.
Because we are looking at two men reacting to that exact realization in, polar opposite ways.
Literally opposite.
Yeah. One buys a gun he doesn't know how to use, and the other buys a massive stereo system he can't even stand to listen to.
It's just wild. And our mission today is to really unpack this. We aren't just going to recap the plot.
No, we never just do that.
Right. Though we obviously will get into Walter's totally ill-fated attempt to become an assassin and Jesse's descent into absolute chaos. But we're going to look under the hood.
The production side.
Yeah, the production secrets. Like how they filmed a mirror shot that totally confuses your brain, or why they needed a 180-foot crane for a single shot of a guy just standing in the street.
And how a literal physicist ended up playing a car wash owner.
Yes. I can't wait to get to that. It's so good.
We also really have to talk about the sound.
Yeah.
The audio landscape of this particular episode is frankly a character in itself.
Totally.
But before we get into all the technical wizardry, let's set the stage for you. Where exactly are we in the story?
Okay, right. Context time. We are in the immediate aftermath of the box cutter incident.
And a hangover.
The ultimate hangover. Gus Fring has just brutally murdered his own henchman, Victor, right in front of Walt and Jesse.
And he did it to send a message.
A very loud, very clear, and very bloody message.
It was so visceral. The season premiere was all about shock. It established Gus as a very real physical threat, not just this, quiet managerial guy in a suit.
Right, he's not just the fast food boss anymore.
Exactly. So now, in 38 Snub, the initial adrenaline has kind of faded, but the terror absolutely hasn't.
Walt is terrified.
He is convinced that he is a dead man walking. He thinks Gus is just waiting for an excuse to take him out.
And then on the other side, you have Jesse. He is trying and really failing to numb the guilt of murdering Gale at the very end of season 3.
And that's just the cartel side of things.
Right. Then you have the domestic front. Skyler is maneuvering to buy a business to launder all this drug money, and Marie is dealing with a very depressed, completely bedridden Hank.
It's basically a pressure cooker.
Yeah.
And the creative team behind this specific pressure cooker included writer George Mastros and director Michelle MacLaren.
Oh, Michelle MacLaren.
Yeah, MacLaren is a name we are going to say a lot today because her visual stamp on this episode is just undeniable.
It really is. So let's dive right into the A-plot. The Walter White narrative. It all starts with the title of the episode itself, 38 Snub.
Which refers, of course, to the .38 caliber snub-nosed revolver that Walter illegally purchases right at the beginning.
Yeah, and this scene really sets the tone for the next hour. Walt is in this dingy motel room meeting a black market dealer.
And the moment that dealer turns around, if you are a fan of genre television, you probably shouted at your screen,
Jim Beaver.
Jim Beaver, the legendary character actor.
I mean, you might know him as Ellsworth from Deadwood
Or deeply beloved as Bobby Singer from Supernatural.
Yes. Seeing him in the Breaking Bad universe was such a massive crossover moment for TV nerds.
It really was. But getting him there was actually a complete logistical nightmare.
Really?
Yeah, you have to remember, this was filmed back in 2011. Jim Beaver was a series regular on Supernatural at the time.
Which shoots in Canada, right?
Right. He was incredibly busy.
And usually in TV production, that means it just doesn't happen. Casting directors just move on to the next guy on the list.
Usually, yes. But Beaver really wanted to do it. He was a huge fan of the show. So the production basically moved mountains.
Wow.
They flew him into Albuquerque, and they had him for literally half a day.
Half a day.
That is it. They had to get this incredibly pivotal, dialogue-heavy scene done in just a few hours before putting him right back on a plane.
That adds such a crazy layer of tension to the performance when you know that. They didn't have time to mess around.
Not at all.
And despite the rush, the performance is just so grounded. George Mastros, the writer, noted that he loved the irony of this character, Lawson.
Yeah, the dealer.
Right here you have a black market gun runner, an actual criminal, who is suddenly acting as the sound of morality in the room.
It creates this wonderful tension. You expect the illegal arms dealer to be the chaotic element, pushing for violence.
Sure, pushing the biggest, baddest gun.
But Lawson is actually trying to talk Walt out of the illegal purchase. Or at least he's trying to steer him towards something legal for defense, like a shotgun for the home.
Because he's looking at Walt, this, high school teacher, in a beige windbreaker, and he's doing a risk assessment.
Exactly. He sees a man who is clearly in way over his head.
He's basically saying, you do not look like a killer. You look like a liability.
But Walt insists. He wants the snub nose. He wants something highly concealable.
Right.
And that reveals his true intent. He isn't buying this for home protection. He is buying it for an assassination.
He fully intends to walk right up to Gus Fring and shoot him.
Which, as we will see, is a terrible plan.
An awful plan. But before we leave that motel room, we really have to talk about how the scene opens. Because visually, it does something very, very tricky.
The mirror shot.
Yes. Let's unpack this shot, because it's one of those things you might miss if you aren't paying close attention. But once you see it, it's brilliant.
It really is.
The episode opens with Walter speaking directly into the camera. He's asking, so how does it look?
And as a viewer, you think he's talking to the dealer. You assume the camera is the dealer's point of view.
Right. It establishes this really intimate, almost confrontational connection with you, the viewer.
But then the camera moves, or rather the perspective shifts, and you realize he isn't looking at the dealer at all.
He's looking into a mirror. We're just seeing his reflection.
It was filmed to be deliberately disorienting. Michelle MacLaren wanted you to feel unmoored, just like Walt feels.
It totally works.
But there is a deeper critical interpretation here, too. Logan Hill, writing for New York Magazine, pointed out that this is a brilliant symbol for self-reflection.
He's checking his mask, right?
Precisely. He is wondering if the internal burden he is carrying, all that fear, the murderous intent, is actually visible on his face.
He's asking, can the world see what I am becoming?
Yes. It's a moment of intense narcissism and deep insecurity. He is practicing the role of a killer before he actually tries to be one.
It's such a cool way to start the episode. And, here is a little nugget for the set design nerds out there.
Oh, the room itself.
Yeah, that motel room, totally fake.
Which is surprising because it looks incredibly gritty and authentic. It has that, stained carpet, cheap wood paneling vibe.
Director Michelle MacLaren wanted a real rundown motel feel.
But have you ever tried to fit an entire camera crew, a boom operator, actors, and full lighting rigs into a real Motel 6 room?
It is physically impossible. They're way too small. You'd be shooting everything in extreme close-up, and the actors would just be bumping into the equipment.
Exactly. So production designer Mark Freeborn built a set completely from scratch.
But get this, it had removable walls.
Oh, wild wall set?
Yeah, they could pull a wall out to get a camera angle from a distance that would be literally impossible in real life, and then just slot the wall right back in for the reverse shot.
That kind of control is essential when you are on a super tight schedule with a guest actor like Jim Beaver.
Right, because they only had him for half a day.
Exactly. It allowed MacLaren to get those really cinematic wide angles that make the characters feel isolated in the space without being constrained by actual drywall.
So Walter gets the gun, he has the tool, and then he practices his draw in his apartment, which is just another scene that oozes awkwardness. He's literally posing with it.
It's Taxi Driver without the cool factor. He is desperately trying to psych himself up.
And then he decides to make his move.
Yep.
He drives to Gus's house at night.
Here we go.
He puts on this black hat Heisenberg mode, fully activated. He's marching up the street, and then he gets intercepted.
He doesn't even get close to the front door.
Not even close.
Tyrus, the new henchman who replaced Victor, just calls him on the phone. Walt answers, looking totally confused, spinning around.
And the message is chillingly simple. Go home, Walter.
It's so defeating. He is all revved up, adrenaline pumping, thinking he's the hunter.
And with 3 words, they turn him right back into the prey. They were watching him the entire time.
It perfectly emphasizes the asymmetry of information. Gus's organization sees absolutely everything. Walt sees nothing.
Nothing at all.
But the way they filmed his defeat, this is where the deep dive really gets good. There is a shot at the very end of the scene where the camera is looking straight down on Walt from way, way up high.
Oh, man, this is one of the most discussed shots in the entire episode. It is an extreme overhead crane shot.
Yes.
Now, usually for television, a standard crane might go up 30 feet. Maybe 40 if you're getting really fancy.
Michelle McLaren rented a 180-foot tall crane.
180 feet. That is 18 stories high. Just for this one single shot.
Think about the logistics of that for a second. They're shooting at night. They have a very limited window of darkness.
Yeah, I read the sources on this. They only had 4 hours to shoot the night scenes before they lost the permit time or the sun came up.
So they had to set up this monster piece of machinery as the very first shot of the evening.
Which is terrifying for a crew.
Completely.
Yeah.
If the crane malfunctioned or if the setup took too long, the whole night schedule would have been completely ruined. It was a massive financial and practical risk.
So why do it? Why go to that kind of trouble and expense for a shot that lasts, what, maybe 10 seconds on screen?
Because it's about scale. If you shoot Walt from eye level, he just looks like a man standing on a street. If you shoot him from 30 feet up, he looks like a man being watched from a rooftop.
Sure.
But from 180 feet up, he is just a tiny, helpless dot in the middle of a vast, dark world.
It minimizes him completely.
Exactly. McLaren wanted to convey Walter's absolute insignificance in that moment. He thinks he is this powerful player, this kingpin in the making.
Right.
But from the perspective of the universe, or from the perspective of Gus Fring, he is an ant. He is entirely alone, and he is totally out of his depth.
It is quite literally a God's eye view of a very pathetic man. And practically speaking, it's just a stunning piece of cinematography.
Yeah.
It elevates the show from a standard crime drama to something almost operatic.
And that theme of, pathetic aggression continues because Walt doesn't just give up.
He can't.
Right. He learns he can't get to Gus directly, so he tries to find a proxy.
Which leads to the bar fight, or, well, I should really say the bar beatdown.
Yes. The confrontation with Mike Ehrmantraut.
So Walt tracks Mike down to a local bar, which, by the way, McLaren filmed so beautifully. She backlit Walt as he enters the bar, so he appears as just a stark silhouette in the doorway.
It felt exactly like a scene out of a Western.
Very Sergio Leone.
We see that influence all over this season, really. The tense silence, the focus on the eyes, the wide framing. But the dynamic here is crucial. Walt sits down and tries to pitch Mike.
He says, look, we're in the same boat.
Yeah.
Gus killed Victor. He could easily kill you. Put me in a room with him so I can use this gun.
It is such a desperate sales pitch. He's trying to use pure logic to recruit the guy who actively hates him.
And Mike? Mike is simply not buying it.
No. Mike reveals he was steps ahead the whole time. He knew Walt was tailing him all day. He even knew Walt was carrying the pistol into the super lab.
That part is so embarrassing for Walt.
It is. Mike basically tells Walt, you are not a partner in this. You are just a problem.
And when Walt pushes too hard, when he implies that Mike is actually in danger, that is the trigger.
The physical explosion. Mike just punches Walt, knocks him down, and then kicks him hard while he's on the floor.
And then he just walks out, leaves him there. It's brutal. And here's where it gets really interesting regarding the production and the stunt work. You might naturally assume, oh, they use stunt doubles for that, especially with older actors.
Nope. Bryan Cranston and Jonathan Banks performed the stunts themselves.
Which adds a level of gritty realism you just can't fake with a wide shot and a double.
Exactly. Stunt coordinator Al Godo arranged it, but the actors executed it. Now, safety is obviously paramount on a set. To make the kicking safe, they placed a really large sandbag against Bryan Cranston's torso.
Oh, hidden under his clothes.
Either hidden under his clothes or just blocked entirely by the camera angle. So when Jonathan Banks is winding up and kicking him on the ground, he's actually kicking the sandbag with full force.
So Cranston is getting physically jolted by the real impact, but his ribs aren't shattering.
Right. It allows Banks to really commit to the violence without holding anything back.
But there was also a really specific editing choice that Vince Gilligan made that totally changed the feel of the fight.
Oh, right. Originally, the scene was blocked so that after the conversation at the bar, they both stand up, square off, maybe exchange a look, and then the punch happens.
It was more of a traditional fight start, like a duel in a saloon.
Exactly. But in the editing room, Gilligan decided to cut the standing up part entirely.
Really?
Yeah. So in the final broadcast version, Walt is just sitting there talking, trying to convince him, and then suddenly, bam! He is on the floor. Mike punches him almost out of nowhere.
It makes it so much faster. It's incredibly surprising.
It emphasizes Mike's raw efficiency as an operator. He doesn't posture. He doesn't need to square up or warn you. He just strikes. It makes Mike scarier and makes Walt look even more helpless.
So that is Walt's journey in this episode. He buys a gun. He tries to use it. He gets told to go home by a guy on a phone. He tries to recruit a grumpy ally, and he gets punched in the face. He is just flailing.
He is trying to control his fate through aggression, and he is failing miserably. Now let's pivot to the other side of the coin, Jesse Pinkman.
Yeah.
If Walt is trying to control everything, Jesse is trying to drown everything out.
Jesse's storyline in 38 Snub it's honestly just heartbreaking and some of the darkest, most oppressive stuff the show has done. He is totally miserable. He killed Gale, and now he is completely terrified of his own thoughts. So what does he do? He buys stuff.
He engages in sheer manic consumption. He buys a very high-end stereo system, and famously, he buys a Roomba.
The Roomba. I love that detail. Why a Roomba?
Well, writer George Mastras included the Roomba specifically because it is inane.
Right.
Think about it. It's a robot vacuum. Jesse lives in what is essentially a frat house mixed with a meth den. He does not care about cleaning.
Right. Hygiene isn't really his priority right now.
He wants the Roomba simply because it is a thing that moves. It's like a little robotic pet. It makes a humming noise. It occupies physical space.
It's activity for the sake of activity.
Exactly. He just wants something moving in the house so he doesn't feel alone with his brain.
And when the gadgets aren't enough, he brings in the people. He has Badger and Skinny Pete arrange this multi-day, non-stop party.
This is the Sound and Fury segment of our deep dive. The party was a huge, fascinating production challenge. They couldn't film this in a real house.
They're messy.
Way too messy. You've got graffiti, pizza, drugs, hundreds of extras, and they needed to do things with the camera that you simply can't do in a real living room. So this was also shot entirely on a soundstage.
And the camera work here gets really experimental. We talked about the mirror shot and the crane shot for Walt, but for Jesse, they went totally gonzo. We actually have shot from the point of view of the Roomba.
Which is such a weird, low-angle, scurrying perspective. It makes you feel like vermin scuttling across the floor through a forest of legs.
And we also have a shot from the point of view of a pizza box.
It creates this intense sense of nausea. You are trapped in this party, and there is a specific editing trick called a match cut that director Michelle McLaren conceived on the fly.
Oh, explain that for us.
So you have a shot of Badger leaning out of the frame to snort meth. The camera just holds on the empty space for a split second, and then instantly, Skinny Pete pops up into the frame in the exact same spot. It basically loops them together.
It creates this weird, endless loop effect, like one junkie leaves, another appears, and they are essentially the same entity.
Exactly. It visually suggests that these people are completely interchangeable. They aren't real friends to Jesse. They are just warm bodies filling the empty space. The party feels like this endless, repetitive nightmare. It is not fun. It is dizzying.
And the music supervisor, Thomas Golubik, chose tracks that heavily reflected that nightmare vibe.
It's not party anthems. It's variations of punk rock, hip-hop, and heavy dubstep. Songs like Money by D/R period or Digital Animal by Honey Claws.
It's super aggressive.
It's an assault. It's not background music. It is an active weapon against silence.
And that leads us to the final breakdown. The party eventually clears out. Everyone leaves. And Jesse is left alone with the exact silence he's been dreading. So he sits directly in front of his massive speakers.
This is really the climax of the episode for me. He turns the volume all the way up and sits inches away. He is literally vibrating against the speaker to stop himself from thinking.
Now, here's a tech challenge I honestly hadn't thought about until reading the sources. How do you film a speaker pulsing like that without totally deafening the actor?
Right, you can't actually blast music at 120 decibels right into Aaron Paul's ear. It would cause permanent hearing damage in minutes.
Yeah, safety regulations wouldn't allow it.
And you wouldn't be able to give the actor any direction during the take.
So they tried special effect.
They tried a lot of things. They tried shaking the speakers manually off camera. They tried pulling the cones with invisible strings from the back to make them bounce. But it all looked incredibly fake. It didn't have that violent, rapid vibration of a real subwoofer pumping air.
So what was the solution? How did they get it?
Michelle McLaren went shopping.
Right.
She went to a local stereo store in Albuquerque and just explained the problem to the guys working there. She said, I need a speaker to move like it's blasting, but I need it to be quiet.
That is just classic on-the-ground problem solving.
She actually found a device there called a bass tester. It's meant to test the limits of audio equipment. It allows a system to push air and move the speaker cones at what they call maximum excursion. That means the cone moving in and out as far as it can physically go, but it does it at a frequency that doesn't generate the loud, audible booming sound.
No way. So the speaker's physically thumping, pushing real air, but it's basically silent.
Relatively silent, yes. Just the mechanical sound of the physical movement. They even hired the actual store employee to come to the set and run the system for them.
That is amazing.
So Aaron Paul is literally leaning against this violently throbbing speaker, acting his heart out, physically shaking from the vibration, but the actual deafening dubstep music we hear on TV was dubbed in later in post-production.
That is pure movie magic. It explains why the performance is so visceral. He's actually physically interacting with the prop. It's pushing against him.
And the critical reception to that scene, I mean, critics were floored. Tim Surratt from TV.com said Karen Paul's acting ripped his heart out.
Yeah.
Emily Vanderwerf from the Los Angeles Times called it the most chilling thing so far this season. It's a genuine portrait of a man in hell.
It really is.
Yeah.
So we have Walt completely failing to be a gangster and Jesse failing to escape his guilt. But the world of Breaking Bad is bigger than just them. We have to check in on the supporting cast because there is some serious drama happening elsewhere.
Let's talk about Skyler White. She is taking the initiative. She actively wants to buy the car wash where Walt used to work as a cover to launder the drug money.
The A1 car wash. And she has to go deal with the current owner, Bogdan.
A man with the eyebrows?
The eyebrows. They are absolutely legendary. Now, Bogdan is played by Marius Stan. And here is a fact from the sources that completely blew my mind. Marius Stan is not an actor by trade.
No, he is not.
Do you want to tell everyone what he actually is?
He is a physicist.
A physicist.
Yeah.
Like an actual working scientist?
A literal PhD scientist. He was teaching at the University of Chicago during the filming of the show.
How on earth does a physicist end up playing a car wash owner on a prestige television drama?
Well, he was living in Albuquerque for work at the time, and he just has a very distinctive look. The casting directors saw him and just loved his presence. He'd never acted professionally before in his life.
That is wild. So you have an actual physicist playing a car wash owner yelling at a fictional chemistry teacher who is secretly a drug lord.
Only on Breaking Bad, but in this episode, Skyler approaches him with an offer, and he shuts her down hard. He is still furious about how Walt insulted him when he quit back in the pilot episode.
That's a great narrative callback. It shows that Walt's past ego trips, like when he grabbed his crotch and told Bogdan, "Wipe down this," are creating very real obstacles for their current criminal enterprise.
Exactly. Walt scorched the earth because of his pride, and now Skyler has to try to plant seeds in it. It is not going well.
And then we have the Schrader household.
Yeah.
Hank and Marie.
Yeah.
It's really grim.
It is very difficult to watch. Hank is bedridden, recovering from the massive shooting injuries with the Salamanca cousins from last season. He is deeply depressed, incredibly bitter, and taking it all out on Marie.
He is just so relentlessly mean to her.
He is. There's a scene where he celebrates a small victory with his physical therapist. He manages to move his leg or stand for just a moment. And in that moment, he's charming, he's happy, he's the old Hank.
But then the therapist leaves.
Right. The therapist leaves, and Marie tries to share in that excitement. She is genuinely thrilled for him.
And he just walls her off completely.
He absolutely refuses to share the joy with her. He goes totally cold. Critics really noted that this script effectively conveyed Marie's increasing isolation. She is trying so hard to be the supportive wife, and he is punishing her simply for witnessing his weakness.
It's devastating. And speaking of witnessing things, we also get introduced to a new face in the criminal underworld, Tyrus Kitt.
Played by Ray Campbell, he is the new Victor.
The permanent replacement.
Interestingly, the script just called him New Victor for a long time. It was the writer, George Mastras, who finally gave him the actual name Tyrus.
How does he compare to Victor, in your view?
He is colder. Victor was a bit of a hothead, always kind of eager to please Gus. Tyrus is quiet, he's hyper-efficient, he feels much more corporate, but in a very dangerous way.
Right. He's the one who makes that chilling phone call to Walt outside Gus's house. Go home. Just ice cold.
Moving on to the broader production style of the episode. We touched on the Western vibes earlier with the bar scene, but this episode is absolutely drenched in them.
Totally. Reviewers were constantly comparing it to Sergio Leone movies like The Good, The Bad, and The Ugly.
What specifically gives it that vibe, do you think?
Well, according to the sources, it's the extreme close-ups on the eyes and hands. It's those tense, drawn-out silences where nobody is talking, just staring each other down. It's the saloon fight feel of the bar scene. Entertainment Weekly writer Melissa Maris actually specifically pointed that out in her review.
It's a modern Western. Instead of horses, we have Aztecs and Monte Carlos. Instead of a six-shooter, well, actually, Walt literally buys a six-shooter.
A .38 snub, exactly. The iconography is completely intact.
We really can't ignore the pop culture references. This show always grounds itself in the real world so well. At Jesse's party, amidst all the darkness and the drugs, Badger and Skinny Pete are having this incredibly heated debate about zombie video games.
A classic Badger and Skinny Pete conversation. They are debating the mechanics of different zombie franchises. Left 4 Dead, Resident Evil 4, and Call of Duty. World at war.
They are arguing about whether zombies can run, right? The classic slow versus fast zombie debate.
Right. And Badger has that hilarious line describing the Nazi zombies in Call of Duty as the Talibans of the zombie world.
It adds that perfect layer of absurd humor that Breaking Bad is so famous for. Even in the midst of Jesse's total psychological breakdown, you have these two guys arguing passionately about video game logic.
It serves a narrative purpose, too, though. It shows that life goes on. Jesse is falling apart, but his friends are just being their usual kind of oblivious selves. It actually isolates Jesse even more because he can't participate in that innocent stupidity anymore. He's seen way too much.
That's a great point. And there's a pizza callback.
Yes. The large, unsliced pizza at the party. It's a direct visual reference to the Season 3 episode, Caballo Sin Nombre, where Walt famously throws the pizza on his own roof.
I love that they keep that strange continuity. In Albuquerque, apparently, they just don't slice their pizza.
Fans were totally obsessed with that detail. Vince Gilligan eventually had to explain it on a podcast or an interview that this particular fictional pizza chain just doesn't cut their pies. They pass the savings on to you.
It's so funny. So let's look at how this episode was actually received by the public when it aired.
Ratings-wise, it had about 1.97 million household viewers.
Is that considered good for season 4?
Well, it was the 3rd most watched episode by that point in the 4th season, but it was actually a significant drop from the premiere, which had over 2.5 million. But, this is pretty common in TV. Premieres grab everyone who's curious, and then the audience settles into its core base.
And what about the reviews?
Generally positive, but definitely with some caveats. People widely praised the tension and the visual innovation, the camera work we discussed, the crane shot. The Hollywood Reporter called the photography and direction masterful.
Which it is.
Salon.com praised the luxuriating pace and specifically highlighted that massive overhead shot of Walter.
But not everyone was completely happy.
No. Some critics, like those at Crave Online, felt Jesse's storyline was getting a bit repetitive. Like, we get it, he's partying, he's sad, let's move on. And Hank was so incredibly unsympathetic that it made the Marie subplot really hard for some people to enjoy watching.
And CNN even called it a placeholder episode.
Which is a fair criticism if you were only looking for massive plot advancement. Walt ends the episode largely right where he started, totally helpless. But if you are looking for character depth and visual storytelling, I think it's absolutely essential.
In the grand scheme of things, where does it rank historically?
The Ringer did a definitive ranking in 2019 of all 62 Breaking Bad episodes. They placed 38 Snub at number 58.
Ooh, that is pretty low. That's bottom 5.
It is definitely toward the bottom. But you have to remember, a so-called bad episode of Breaking Bad is still better than most incredible episodes of other television shows.
Yeah.
It's a bridge episode. It moves the emotional pieces into place for the really explosive conflict that comes later in the season.
So let's wrap this up. We have thoroughly unpacked the gun, the mirror, the 180-foot crane, the silent bass tester, and the physicist car wash owner.
We really have. So what is the big takeaway here?
For me, it is entirely about the illusion of action. Walt thinks buying a gun is doing something. Jesse thinks throwing a massive party is doing something. But really, they are both just reacting blindly to their own helplessness.
Yeah.
The production team used every technical trick in the book, from sky-high cranes to vibrating speakers, to visually represent that feeling of being small, trapped, and completely isolated.
It transforms a quote-unquote placeholder plot into a genuine piece of visual art. Well, here's a final thought to leave you with, listeners. Consider the profound contrast we talked about today. One man, Walt, looks into a mirror, practices his hardened face, and tries to buy a weapon to control his fate. The other man, Jesse, surrounds himself with hundreds of people and deafening noise just to drown out his reality. Yet, how does the episode actually end for both of them?
They both fail.
Exactly. Walt is lying battered on the floor of a bar, totally alone. Jesse is vibrating against a massive speaker in an empty house, totally alone.
It really raises the question, is noise just another form of silence when you are truly suffering?
Something to mull over.
Yeah.
If you want to see that crazy crane shot or the mirror trick yourself, definitely go rewatch 38 Snub. It is absolutely worth a second look with all this in mind. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Until next time.